couple of weeks ago, we had jokes about pencils. This week, you're going to get a bucket load of jokes about eggs, and hopefully, they are enough to crack you up. Hey friends, it's Matt from Lame Joke Thursday, the place where you're guaranteed to get the cream of the crop concerning the lamest jokes around. Bestowed upon you each week with lavish generosity, these jokes are carefully curated and cunningly crafted for your enjoyment. As always, the props are centrally constructed with whatever I can cleverly cobble together. What's the point of all this frivolity, you ask? To put a smile on your dial, maybe even make you giggle with glee. If I've successfully managed to float your boat in either of those two ways, maybe you could consider subscribing and pounding that like button. Now, without further ado, let's get into this week's joke. This week's joke is extravagant, extraordinary, you may say. What's the best way to make an egg laugh? You tell him a yolk. But on the flip side of that, see what I did there? Flip side, because you flip an egg. Why should you never tell an egg a joke? Because as soon as they hear the punchline, they would crack. Good evening. Don't mind me. I was just sitting here by my fireplace. I'd like to tell you a story. Is there anyone else around? Tell them to gather round. Gather round. I hope you're sitting comfortably. This is a tale of two souls. The first soul was wise, caring, confident, and compassionate. The other was quite the opposite. Timid, frightened, and a tad too naive. The former soul, a hen whose name was Gertrude. She was a chicken who considered herself to be a bit of a laugh, and always went out of her way to see the best in others and support them. She was a prominent member of a troupe of comedy hens that performed stand-up comedy on stage. The latter soul's name was an egg called Steve. An attempted hard-boil gone wrong in his youth left him soft to the core, struggling with his identity ever since he left the hot water of the saucepan. Quiet, socially awkward, and overcome with feelings of inadequacy often were the norm for Steve. He never fitted in. But he was determined to change this. The very next day, Steve saw an advertisement for a comedy show in which Gertrude's troupe was performing. On the spur of the moment and against his better judgment, he purchased a ticket. But afterwards, he regretted it. In his mind, he didn't see anything extraordinary about the yolks told by the comedy hens. Yet everyone else was laughing and having a great time. When on stage, Gertrude managed to serve most of her yolks funny side up. But Steve had none of it. He hurriedly left the theatre, distraught and shell-shocked. By extreme coincidence, as he was leaving the venue, Steve the egg ran into Gertrude the hen. During their brief conversation, being the perceptive fowl that she is, Gertrude managed to discern that something was up with Steve. By some miracle, sweaty-palmed Steve fumbled his way through that conversation and shared his personal struggles with the performer. She took pity on him, decided to help, and immediately began to hatch a plan in her mind's eye. In the days that followed, Gertrude concluded that she needed to take responsibility for Steve's journey to come out of his shell by telling him more jokes. She consulted her encyclopedia of humor and also asked the other hens in the troupe for help. Collecting the best material together, one of the other hens joked that Gertrude was poaching all of their best yolks. But that didn't really matter. as long as Steve benefited. When they next met up, Gertrude arrived on a segue, thinking that this was one of the ways to meet Steve at his level and put him at ease. They talked for over an hour, and Steve left the encounter a changed egg. During the conversation, he laughed so hard he cried, but thankfully, his shell remained intact. They continued to meet up over the next few weeks, and their friendship blossomed. Steve was so grateful, he sent a thank you card and the other gifts to Gertrude via FedExpress. Fast forward a few years, and these two souls ended up getting married. They lived happily ever after. But one thing in their relationship wasn't ever quite right. It always caused confusion for both of them, whenever the particular situation arose. All throughout their courtship and then even into their marriage, whenever one of them had to lead and the other one had to follow, they were always second-guessing themselves, asking, who should go first, the chicken or the egg? The end. I hope you liked that story. Bye for now. Until next time.